I think I would look at it as, at least for App Armor, I always say this to people, we had to grow our talent.
Yeah.
Kind of like a AAA baseball team. We were playing, you and I were playing, big league, whatever, big league ball. We were a pretty big deal. I don't know. Down at the old cracker factory. So we were playing big league ball, and then we would, grow our talent. So people would start out, they would have a minimal impact on the business. As time went on, we would bring them up to the big leagues.
Let's get it rolling. Big ideas, money folding, hustle smart, dream so wild. Turn that grind into a joyride.
Want to talk to you today about what we did in our company, which was hired a lot of new grads, because startup, we didn't have a ton of money.
Okay.
We were also looking for, there were government programs to encourage hiring of new grads,
Sure.
things like that.
So are we putting, just so I know before, two things I want to say before we start this episode.
Okay.
Or as we've started this episode. One, are we putting AI on a shelf just for this conversation?
Nope, this will be part of the conversation, because
Okay.
I want this to be a...
We did have kind of a similar discussion, so I want to make sure a little bit different.
Okay.
Second is, while our policies were biased to young people, we do not hate old people. We do not hate old people.
I am old people.
Chris is old people, yeah. All right, very good.
Yeah. Okay.
You're still youthful and full of life, though.
So obviously hiring new grads versus hiring kind of like the experienced person with like a career in the field, that kind of stuff. Okay. So why don't we give a little bit of a story of our hiring background and kind of how we built. So it was the two of us at first.
Yep.
Okay. We hired 2 recent grads. We had a complete culture failure that went sideways. One quit and one we had to let go.
Yeah.
So we were back to just us. Okay. So we then moved to a co-working location because we realized culture is actually kind of important. Co-working kind of,
and we just didn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
We skipped that course in the MBA or something, but we just couldn't build the culture
weren't good at it. Yeah. So what we did, the way we achieved that was we moved from kind of crummy office space to a co-working location that had a better vibe. Other companies in there, they had like the perks, they had the beer o'clock, all those types of things. And then, so we started hiring again, and again, it was younger, right out of school, minimal experience. We hired interns that were students that graduated and then became employees. So we really built our talent from...
Or through we would find people who had an interest in business, but had a different degree. So we looked for... at Queen's University, they had the graduate diploma in business, which was you got an arts and science degree in something, politics, history, insert whatever extremely useful degree, and then you get I got a history degree, so I'm allowed to say that. And then you got like a supplementary like diploma from the School of Business about something business related. Those were the target because we knew that they were keeners for business and we're looking for opportunity.
Exactly.
Right? With like a startup or something.
Yeah. What we didn't hire ever was the experienced career person.
Yeah.
Why didn't we?
Yeah. Okay. So a couple of reasons. So, and I'm going to talk from my perspective, and you can fill in the blanks.
Sure.
So I think the first thing that I had a problem with was I thought it would be an issue. Remember, I was pretty young. Like I was like 22, 23, 24, depending on which year here. And I thought it would be an issue that I would be younger than the person I was managing.
Oh.
And I thought that, and I think that's a rational expectation for a lot of reasons. So for one thing, they have more experience in presumably in our market. Otherwise, why are we talking to them? Or with our technology. Yeah. Otherwise, why are we talking to them? So this I felt would be challenging and something that, like, for instance, if I was to think of myself now as a 36-year-old and have somebody 26 managing me, I would have to really, it's not that I don't believe them. It's just that their experience would have to be really specific, and the industry or the company would have to have something I'm really about.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like, you would have these moments being like, that's stupid. You know what I mean? Or like, I know better because of whatever. It would be hard to not have those thoughts creep in your mind. And the other thing I worried about too is I was the blank slate new grad effectively. And you were almost like mentoring me a lot on certain things to some extent. Like, you didn't mentor me on sales. I kind of just like got into that. But I do think there's something to be said there where it was going to be, I was worried it was going to get weird.
Yeah.
It got weird, didn't it?
Okay. That is an interesting comment. So if I think back to the time before Dave.
Land before time.
Yeah. So you recall I was document management software.
Yep.
I was selling it through photocopier dealerships, and I had 2 employees
Yep.
who were significantly older than me. So I
Okay.
was probably like 23, and the employees were probably like 60.
What?
Yeah,
Wow, I didn't realize they
yeah.
were that much older.
They were like,
so that feels like an impossible setup.
they were like industry veterans. They were people that worked. One guy previously owned a photocopier dealership, and one guy was a photocopier salesperson.
Whoa,
right?
man, that's
So
tough.
can I tell you
The
that
baggage.
I
man.
definitely like felt like I was getting run by them. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like they knew the industry really well. I was like the newcomer, but I knew the technology, and we were thinking this is a good marriage of these skills. But I felt like I was always out negotiated because like I'd never negotiated a compensation plan.
Yeah, they knew how to do it.
Okay.
They've done it. They've done it a
I'd
whole bunch of times.
I didn't know that, you know, the games that go on with like expense reports and things like that, you know, and I didn't know how to manage or monitor,
I imagine,
you know, employees or sales
you
people.
saved me from so many stupid decisions. Like
because I made them already.
Yeah. They're in the book too. We talk about them, and
Yeah.
it's like, and this is when Chris saved my butt on this one, and this is when he helped me with this one, and it was because you had been through some of this,
And I'd made the mistake.
yeah.
So I knew that was going to be a
Which
mistake.
is like the story of my life, right? Because you had because you're 10 years ahead of me, so you've experienced a lot of stuff, and I see you screw up and be like, "Wow, I'm not going to do that one." but
I never
yeah.
taught you anything like actually like
No,
good.
you never
I just,
said it.
I
You didn't lecture.
I
You
was-
just demoed.
I was just like, Dave, I got a terrible story about something bad that
Ooh.
happened, and this is why we shouldn't do that thing.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, no, for real.
yeah.
But-
Okay.
so you're hitting on a lot of interesting things though there. So I think that with older, let's play devil's advocate for a second. So the case for older employees,
Yeah.
I think, is like, okay, they have relevant experience in your market. I always think of it from sales perspective because, but here's the two-edged sword of that in just a second. But so they should theoretically have the context, the Rolodex, which is really important. They're basically like a rainmaker. They're going to come in, they're going to make money for your company.
Yeah.
I think this is complicated for a couple of reasons. And by the way, that can work.
Yeah.
Just end of sentence.
Yeah.
Where this gets complicated is that older employees have a deeper field of knowledge, which is good and bad. On the one hand, it's good because they know things about your market. It's bad that they can use that information against you. There's like a built-in information asymmetry that's challenging that you really can't get. It's experience. They have experience and you don't. I think that they, what do you get with a younger employee? You get a crazy keener beaver. They're going to be, usually, if you're hiring correctly, you're going to get someone who's very keen and excited and willing to learn. I think as you get older, I mean, you can comment to this again, being 10 years older than me, that you kind of get like more set in your ways. This is how this is done. This is how we've always done it.
Yeah.
So you come with, this is the cultural and organizational, like structural baggage. You're going to get the way they work. And that's going to work its way, especially if it's like one of the early employees of your company. You're going to start doing work the way they've always done work.
Right.
Because that's how they operate.
And that's a bit of a risk, especially if you're a
Huge
startup,
risk.
because you are going to want to
Imagine
disrupt.
hiring, like,
you know?
again, like AI always changes everything in this, but like, imagine hiring like somebody who's 60 years old in a world where AI is this disruptive new technology.
Yeah.
They've never used it.
Yeah.
They don't understand it.
Yeah.
Like, and not 100%. I always like little caveats because, you know, there's probably a 5% of people in their 60s who are like so engaged into AI. Great.
Yeah.
But I would say overwhelmingly, they're not. And also overwhelmingly, they are tired. Like I have 2 kids, energy level.
Yeah.
I can feel it going down each year I get older.
Yeah.
I have no idea how I'm going to feel when I'm 60.
So can I give an example of that from my story about the photocopier dealer guys that worked for me? So the software I built was document management software. Okay. And the way we priced it was very similar to a photocopier. You paid for the software one time.
Right.
We paid the commission to
First
the sales
issue.
rep.
Okay.
And the dealer was able to mark it up and make their margin on it. And that was it. Okay.
That's ridiculous. But it's because that's how they sold in that market.
Right.
Yeah.
They wanted a big check, a big deal. They put it in their pocket and they go on to the next big check, the next big deal.
Yeah.
Whereas how it should have been sold would have been a monthly recurring. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then the photocopier sales rep, the
Doesn't get
mentality
the-
there is like, well, I don't want $10 every month for,
Look,
the next You know what I mean? Like the margin on that, the amount of money was not worth their while. They needed to make thousands of dollars on each deal and move on to the next deal. They didn't want to do, they weren't in it for the long game. They just wanted their money up front.
Yeah.
And they wanted out, you know?
Like even the fact that you sold through dealerships is an example of like a legacy thought construct. That's the way it works.
Yeah.
This is the way we've always done it, you know? But you could have just as easily gone direct to consumer, direct to these enterprises, charged these recurring models and done way better.
Yeah.
Right. The thing is like you operate in their box. And yeah, because they have experience, there is, again, going back to my original point, there is some level of feeling like they have authority over you.
Right.
Or they're playing you, or they could be playing you.
Yeah.
And I think there's also, because of that, a fundamental mistrust. I just see it as a lot of problems. Now, this is kind of an extreme example, though, just to be clear. Like you were 20 something and they're 60 something.
Yeah.
I think really what we're talking, if you're in the category where they're within like 10 years, maybe it's okay. I think as the years go out, it gets worse, this issue. But if I'm 36 and I'm hiring somebody who's 46, I bet we could make that work. I think we could make that work better. I think we're more relatable, right? You're so far from being able to relate to those guys who have been they would have been selling fax machines, bro.
Yeah.
Like that's
they definitely sold fax machines.
They definitely sold fax machines and typewriters, electric typewriters.
Right.
Like this is a different universe they're from now.
Yeah. So let's
break that's that part of the equation.
So why don't we we've kind of talked a little bit about both sides. Why don't we just break this down more systematically for the listeners?
Wait, one more thing there.
Yeah.
I also think that can be an issue with investors. So if you have a startup and you have a lot of investors are not employees,
right?
But they're generally older because they made a bunch of money. Now they have that money. Now they're investing that money.
Yeah.
And I think this creates problems when, again, they want to have influence over the way they're running the business because they want to manage their investment.
Right.
But they operated in the market because they're not operating anymore. They operated, 5, 10, 20 years ago. And then they bring that expertise, which is out of date, to your company, which could be doing it totally differently. Yeah. And that's going to have complicated consequences. It may be okay, it may work, or it might really not work anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It goes back. It's these issues of alignment most of the time.
Yeah.
How do you get your first customer? Hint, they might be right under your nose. Find the answer to this question and dozens more in Startup Different. Find it on Amazon, Audible, and Kindle.
Okay, so
all right,
we've got new grads, we've got seasoned veteran employees, I guess is what you would call them, or career employees that you're hiring. And I want to talk about the pros and cons for each one. Okay. So let's take the new grads first. Okay. Because we've been there, we've done that. Okay. Yep. I'm gonna put out there some pros and you give me your comments on them. So first pro of hiring,
I'll put my
new
HR
grad,
hat on.
Yeah, exactly.
So hit me.
Cost savings. For a new grad.
Yeah, it's
no brainer, right?
No brainer.
Okay. They are newer. They don't have as much experience. You're probably going to pay them less.
Nowadays, with the job market, like if you're actually hiring a person and not using an AI bot, I also would suspect that you could command actually even a pretty decent, like not a very expensive salary for most people.
Right.
They're just trying to get their foot in the door.
Foot in the door. Yeah,
especially in programs that don't have huge hiring rates.
Okay. So actually, I'm going to get to a comment on that later. So next piece, think about moldability or trainability of a new hire versus.
All right. So here's the two-edged sword of the new hire is, on the one hand, they are a blank slate. You can condition them to have your values, to work the way you do, to buy into your culture more easily. They don't come with preconceived notions. However, they also come with a general lack of obviously experience and know-how.
Yeah.
What does this translate to? Like literally, this is like showing people how to send emails that don't come off as you being a dick. Okay. Or that are just like not helpful. Like communication training.
Yeah.
There's we actually mentioned this in the book. So it's like if you hire a new person, you have to teach them how to send emails. If you hire an older person, you have to teach them not to put the entire email in the subject line.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like there's complications on both sides. But I would say that for those new grads, the blessing and curse is that you can coach them, and they require coaching.
Yeah,
you must do that. Otherwise, they will just
burn out and train them. But they are moldable and trainable.
Correct. Okay. So it's I think I would look at it as, at least for App Armor, I always say this to people, we had to grow our talent.
Yeah.
Kind of like a AAA baseball team. We were playing. You and I were playing. Big league, whatever. Big league ball. We were a pretty big deal. I don't know. The old Cracker Factory. So we were playing big league ball, and then we would grow our talent. So people would start out, they would have a minimal impact on the business. As time went on, we would bring them up to the big leagues, more customer facing, bigger deals if they're a salesperson, more important code if they're a coder, bigger projects if they're an implementation, so on and so forth.
Okay.
So, yeah.
My next point,
Yes.
and my research brought up this one, which was that a new employee and a new grad would bring fresh perspectives and innovation.
True.
And I don't know if I agree with that.
Oh, why?
I don't know. I think some employees would sometimes bring up an idea that they might have, but a lot of the times they would be more like, well, what do you want me to do?
Okay. Well,
you know what I mean?
Hold on. This is all
tell me what you want me to do and I'll do it.
Well, this is dependent on the kind of people you're hiring and for what role you're hiring. So I would definitely say
I just don't think necessarily because they're a new graduate, they're going to bring up fresh perspectives and innovative ideas.
The third thing there is that do they exist in a culture where they believe they can bring up ideas?
Right.
Okay. So if you've built a culture where, hey, you're new here, shut up, listen to us, I know everything.
Yeah.
Or whatever you're saying is stupid. I had scenarios where sales reps brought things to me.
Okay.
Now, sometimes they were pretty dumb because it's like they were literally not in the market and there were reasons why we did stuff.
Yeah.
I think back on how we used to do a morning scrum meeting. Yeah. And that used to be like this 15-minute meeting we do every morning to kind of like just a standing meeting. What are you doing? What are you stuck on? What do you need help with? That kind of thing. I remember we had new employees, and you know who you are, who would push on that, being like, why do we do this? This is a waste of our time. I'm like, no, we're doing this because everybody needs to have the day get going, get set, and we're in. Yeah. And it was really, really important. And then over time, they're like, oh yeah, I see it. I see why we do this. Yeah. Okay. To their dismay. So I guess it's like kind of complicated, but I think but I've had good ideas come from it too. Yeah. Okay. I've had genuine ideas come from that because when you're not in the business all the time, you can see it with a different lens.
So I would just say mileage may vary on these fresh perspectives and innovation.
I would actually say that young grads aren't good for that as much as somebody who's been in the market for 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
Because they have exposure to other systems and other companies and other like ways of doing things that's more valuable than coming like hot out of school.
Okay. So next piece is, I definitely think this is true, technology adoption. So more willing to take on, try new technology. Yes. And I think this is a really big opportunity with AI. If you can get a new grad with a piece of AI that they're using to help them do their job, I think you are going to get some real productive value out of those people. And I think they'll be more likely to just use the AI, which is a little scary at times too, because I've definitely had AI lie to me and tell me things that were incorrect. So able to question the AI and think critically about it. But if you can get an employee at a lower cost that can also be augmented with an AI tool, that might be the sweet spot.
Yeah, I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago when I talked about what's Google looking for. They get millions of applicants. And they're looking for people that show AI proficiency with a variety of tools, and also showing that they've tried it. Like if you set up a little e-commerce store, you have something going that's like highly appealing to Google. Yep. And that makes sense to me. And for the same reasons you said, there's like a base level proficiency and knowledge. Even if you're a reasonably fresh grad, you've like tried some of this stuff and can talk about it and kind of understand how to use it. Maybe teach me something about it. That's like, I would say that natural curiosity is what you're looking for, in addition to the productivity improvements through AI.
So those are like the pros of new hires.
The thing is, I'm so biased here because we did this new hiring. Yeah. Like we always.
All right. So let's talk about the flip side though. Let's talk about the cons of the new graduate hires and kind of one of those. And this first one, I'm going to put some numbers in front of you, is like kind of like just overall performance. I'm going to quote this. The most frequently cited reasons for why these hires didn't work out were a lack of motivation or initiative, 50%, poor communication skills, 39%.
Yeah.
And I would agree with that, because
the first one's a bad hire.
Yeah. And this is probably your hiring process. Yeah. That is not working well if you're.
Yeah. I think an important thing for a founder to hear here is that if you have high turnover, it's a failure of your hiring process. Yeah. It is not a failure necessarily of those people. It's a failure of the hiring process to evaluate those people. And then it could also be a failure of your onboarding. Yeah. How well you bring somebody onto your organization. That includes buy-in into the mission and all that stuff. But literally also like, what are they doing? What systems do they have around them so they can utilize? So How do they do their job? And how do you keep them out of trouble with those systems as well?
So kind of on that point, the next point I want to bring up is kind of like the high turnover risk of job hopping. You know, you're young, you just graduated, you don't know what you want to do. And I don't know if I'm passionate about this. And like, that's a real thing. But the risk is that we talked about moldability and trainability, but you have to mold them and you have to train them. So you're going to invest a lot of time in them. And then there is the risk of a job hopping. Oh, this just wasn't for me. They spent 6 months, of which you probably spent a month or two training. So, which means you probably didn't get a ton out of that relationship.
Of course. This is the inherent risk, the market risk, if you will, of hiring. You hire someone, it cannot work out, even though you put all this time into them. I agree that is a real thing. I think what it is too is that in a startup, I think you have to reinforce with people repeatedly, especially in the early days, that they're on a path to something. It's, you could use gamification if you want, if it's an easy term for you, but you want to like kind of gamify their role at the company. What are your objectives here? What are you trying to do? What do you want to grow into? Oh, and by the way, if you do really well at this, here's where the company is going. We're hoping to have 5 more sales reps and a specific team that does this. I could see you leading that team if you do really well with this over time. If you prove to us you can do those things. Like, you have to give them a glimpse into this hopeful future,
this path.
And then, if you, especially in a startup, because it's really hard to do that when you're just such a horizontal organization. And by that I mean, you're not like a bank where you got like 6 levels above you.
the grid,
you know, where it gets like the triangle, right, where it gets really narrow, and at the top's the CEO, and then there's like levels of senior management, middle management. You're not going to have middle managers, or you shouldn't anyway, in a small startup. So I think it's kind of like one of those things where you need to give them insight. And also that can include like title progression. Yeah, it might be like a director role, might be what it's called later, or a VP role, whatever it's called later, whatever you're comfortable with. But like something that gives them an idea where they're going.
All right.
And they're more likely to stay. Sorry, that's all just retention benefit.
No problem. So those are the cons of the, new grad. Let's flip over to the experienced employee, the career employee. We've talked a little bit about this. Let's talk about the pros of those hiring somebody who's a career employee. First one, immediate impact.
Yeah, they can work right away. They know how to
come in. They can pretty much I think of the sales perspective. If you were to hire somebody that had worked in public safety and we could bring them in,
or like an experienced coder. Like, why wouldn't an experienced coder be immediately valuable?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, they can come in and they're writing code.
I heard that
first day.
This has been bouncing around a lot in the past few weeks, but have you heard about like these $100 million bonus packages for coders for AI tools?
AI researchers, and you're going to have to be pretty good to be getting.
I think I'm in that category. Maybe, well, shit, for $100 million, maybe I can figure this out.
And apparently they pay it out over like a few years, so it's not like a check day.
I think the Toronto podcast internship was putting up $100 million bonus. I'm pretty sure. We'll see. Anyway,
we'll see about that. Okay, so going back, we're not giving out $100 million signing.
So if you don't have $100 million, so actually, if you key to success here, if you want to get a really good person, $100 million signing bonus.
So experienced employees, another pro is hopefully you're bringing somebody in that you're not having to train them. They're more independent,
autonomous,
and essentially bring in some leadership because they know what you're trying to achieve and that sort of stuff.
There's a two-edged sword of that. Okay. So they might know how to lead, but leadership styles may vary. And I also worried that people who came in those roles, if they were going to lead, that they would they learned to lead at another organization.
Yeah,
they learned that in another culture. You better hope that culture is reasonably aligned to your values, or you're going to have problems. Because I think about this. There was, I know I've seen in other companies where, they make an acquisition, for example, and the way that company was managed was so different from like the acquiree or the acquirer, that tension in management style basically ends up being like all the senior managers are like, and they have to reset the culture to be more aligned with the acquirer company.
Yeah. So then my next point is kind of on that as well, is like the idea of like knowledge transfer. So like best practices that worked well in other roles that they had, they're able to bring those in and probably articulate them very effectively and how you can implement them there. And I think that is a real thing.
There's 2 ways to do that. There's this is how we did it here and that's right, or this is how we did it there and I think that could be something we consider,
Right.
is really different.
Yeah.
It's really, how dogmatic is this person?
Exactly.
Like, so much of this is on an individual level.
Right.
Can they handle being in a new company and we don't do all the things they think are super great?
Right.
That's a huge obstacle.
This last piece, I think, really ties into the sales side, is their network and their relationships, whether it be like a network with potential clients or a network with potential like suppliers and vendors and that sort of stuff, like on both ends of the business. If you can find somebody that has good relationships with potential clients and potential vendors, that actually brings some benefits.
The network is half the battle.
Right.
All right. A good salesperson is two things. They are who they know, and they are how much they hustle.
Yeah.
Okay. That second piece, I'm always nervous with somebody older. Salespeople have this tendency to do that career hopping thing that you alluded to, because they get burnt out on the product they're selling or whatever. They just kind of get to a point where they're just less motivated. It's hard to be as energetic as you were as a 25-year-old when you're 35 and you have two kids and you're just trying to pay the mortgage. You feel like, it just feels real different. Okay. And so I kind of think that like, that can be really good. It can be. It can also be,
again, it comes back to the hiring process. Like, can you sniff this stuff out in the hiring process?
Tell you what, you got to be a damn good HR department and a really good manager if you can identify a salesperson who's a good seller, who's also like actually secretly burnt out and hoping to just sort of sit on their Rolodex.
Yeah.
So the other thing that happens when you have a big Rolodex is you lean on it really hard. And if those leads don't materialize, you're not as motivated to go out and get new leads.
Ones, right? Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, like, some of this can be helped through AI tools that are going to generate leads for you, like think through Apollo or something, or from an SDR who usually gets. So that's like you're talking about an account executive. There's like 3 levels of salespeople. We talked about this before. SDR is the lowest level. They book meetings and find opportunities. The account executive does the demo, goes on site, does the thing. Sometimes there's a senior AE, being the 3rd level, who does the closing.
Right.
They come in.
I see.
You can be, if they're the middle one or higher, they can be supported and enabled to be successful. But it's such a pain to get salespeople to prospect.
Yeah,
that I worry about it quite a bit.
Okay, so now I want to talk about the cons of hiring experienced people. So I'm going to rip through these pretty quick because I think we've kind of covered some of this. But obviously, they're more expensive. They're going to have a higher salary.
They have had a job before. They need a big salary, and they probably need benefits, and they probably need all the other things.
All right. So, second one is they're going to be more resistant to change. Like, they probably liked the way they've done things in the past. If you throw something completely disruptive, innovative at them, they might be more resistant to do it.
Put yourself in those shoes for a second. What would your ideal scenario as a new employee who's been working for a while at a new company is that you can go in doing the same level of effort, getting paid more?
Exactly.
That's exactly what you want. So with that in mind, it's inherently misaligned with new initiatives, new systems, new processes, things you have to learn, tools you have to learn. That's why I'm just going to go back to salespeople. That's why it's so damn hard to get salespeople to do anything new.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Because once you kind of there's like a natural inertia to sales. You can just get like a decent level.
Just keep doing what you're doing.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Absolutely.
It worked before. It's going to work again.
So the next one is cultural fit challenges, which I think is really tough in a startup because culture is so important that if you bring somebody in that's like been in other cultures for a long time and you are completely different, it may be awkward. It may be difficult for them to fit into that culture and be part of the team.
Again, this is another thing. We were so young that I was worried about having someone older. Yeah. Because not necessarily for the young people, but for that employee, it's hard to relate to anyone and it weighs on you.
Yeah.
If you're going to work, you can't talk to anybody. It sucks.
So my last con is overqualification risk. You bring somebody in, you got them doing something that's frankly like too easy.
You underemploy them?
You underemploy them and then you lose them. Or they're not contributing, according to their like salary and that sort of stuff. You just
the worst case is they're underemployed. They come in and they're cool working not very much.
Yeah.
Or not very hard. Like when you feel every minute you miss when you're paying someone $1 gazillion and they're not doing something, or they're not delivering, at the expectation you set.
Yeah. Okay, so best practice. Let's wrap this up for the listener. First thing, I think it's about balance. I think it's the right way to do this. Okay, you definitely want young people that you train, that you can mold, and you really want to pick out the good ones. I think tying in some AI tools to a young new employee could be a real game changer as far as making them productive. Understand you're going to have to train them. You're going to have to mold them.
Yep.
And there might be a risk of some job hopping. They might just decide this isn't for me.
That risk exists with all employees.
Exactly. So, it's also one of those things. Yeah, I think you want to look at it like role specific. Like, are there places where a more experienced person, is there a role that person can fit into versus a young person? So that's pretty straightforward. And then, of course, do the skills assessments, like sniffing things out in the interview process to make sure.
It's really challenging, though. It's so easy to be like, you have to do this. Like we hired for skills, bash and fit.
Yeah,
that helped. There are a lot of frameworks out there. Have a framework. Do not wing it. You will waste your time.
Now, startups have an advantage with new grads in that there was a recent study found that 61% of undergraduates thought they would learn more skills and develop quicker in a smaller business. And on top of this, 77% thought they would receive earlier responsibility. And I think that was true with our hires.
You want to have you want to feel so useless. You go through school, you get all this education about how special and important you are and all these different things. And then you get there and you're making PowerPoint decks that don't go anywhere. Like it's in a big company. You go to a startup, you will be probably customer facing in some capacity, which is about as serious as it gets.
Yeah. So another key motivator in a survey of graduates conducted by Give a Grad a Go last year. I don't know what that is. Only 11%.
That's a joke name.
On the compensation side, on the salary side, only 11% said that inadequate pay would be a big concern to start in a small business.
Oh, what a youthful thing to think.
Exactly. They're willing to work cheap, it sounds like.
I think just want to get a job.
Yeah, want to get a job. Want to get a job. Want to get your foot in the door.
Want to get going. Yeah. Your life otherwise doesn't really feel like it's going yet.
Yeah. So, and I think a key success factor for the more experience would be like when you're in a situation in your business, you just don't have time to like train and mold and do all that sort of stuff. Maybe that's when you're looking for a more experienced person because you need them to hit the ground running and come in and help.
You don't have the money though. Like I don't.
You have the money.
Like that kind of feels silly. And I also think that they come in and they bias your cultures. Now they could do it in a good way.
Yep.
They might even know how to structure culture in a way that you enjoy or that you find effective for your working style.
Yeah.
But there's a huge amount. There's a huge risk either way.
Yeah.
So the hiring people is terrible because it's so hard. You can get it wrong. It's really costly. Like we have a thing in the book. There are no small bets in HR.
Yeah.
It's very true. Like it is. I think it is the hardest part of business. No matter, well, for the most part, for 95% of businesses, the hardest thing they're going to do is hire and manage and fire people.
Yeah.
I think for the most time.
Well, hopefully we've given startups some advice that might help them out to avoid some of the mistakes that we've made. I don't think we had such a comprehensive analysis of why we were doing things the way we were doing them. It was more gut instinct.
Yep.
But hopefully there's some pieces there that people can take away.
Good luck, folks. God bless. I'll see you next week.
Start it up. Let's get it rolling. Big ideas, money folding, hustle smart, dream so wild. Turn that grind into a joyride.